Do you bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good summer Thursday morning, Eagles fans. Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guys. That'd be John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We'll be hanging with you for the next couple hours and got two good guests coming your way. Two Eagles-specific guys and John Stolness from Bleeding Green Nation and my buddy and pal Glenn Macnow from the Eagles Radio Network and WIP. So should be a good one. Stick around for the next two. Got a couple of issues to sink our teeth into, as many national ones as local ones, because the Eagles right now are on vacation. Other teams are getting some mini camp action in. The Eagles said mini camp. We don't need this stuff. So they're all on vacay this week. And John, you and I have noted over the last month and a half. How long ago did the Eagles quarterback sign his new contract? When exactly did he put pen to paper? And
boy, that's a good question, man. You're starting too early. It's too early in the morning.
Too early to make you think. Sorry about that. And shame on me. I'm asking you a question I should know the answer to too, and I don't off the top of my head.
Well, it runs quickly. I'm looking it up real quick. I'm
guessing
April 17th.
Okay, so not even a month ago he signed the deal. And it is amazing after we talked about how it helps the Eagles and gets it over and done with, and nobody has to worry about it. And early on in the contract, it's very team friendly, and all those aspects of the contract that have immediate effect on it. And then we just kind of put Jalen Hurts to bed. That he is the guy who is the leader, who is the guy who's going to take them as far as they're going to go. And he's gone in 12 months' time from, don't know if he's good enough. Will the Eagles actually be looking to draft a quarterback? How did they pursue other quarterbacks during this offseason? Because Jalen Hurts' rookie year was good, solid, promising, but not awe-inspiring. And that's why conversations were had around Russell Wilson and conversations were had around Deshaun Watson. A year's time later, it's like, Jalen signed. We're good. Quarterback. Don't worry about that. Let's talk about everything else. That's the way it played out. And it's because of Jalen Hurts, because he had as great a year as he did. Despite that, I do want to ask a Jalen Hurts couple questions to start the show today. Yes, we should talk about the quarterback of the Eagles heading into a season. Should we not? The Philly Voice put up a post today using one of the gambling outs that everybody has their own that they use. Hey, feel free to use Oceans if you want to get your Eagles action in. But the over-under numbers have been put out for Jalen Hurts' production this year as quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And as you can probably expect, they're very similar to the numbers that Jalen Hurts put up last year when he was the runner-up for MVP in the National Football League. So I'm going to run them past you, Johnny Mack, in 4 categories. Over-unders for Jalen Hurts in this upcoming season. Passing yards, 3,700 and a half. You always got to go to the half because you don't want ties. When your numbers are that big, you can just move it a half a yard and not even think about it, just so you guarantee yourself there are no times. Last year, Jalen Hurts threw for 3,700 yards. So this year, his number is 3,700 and a half. So basically, it comes down to, will Jalen Hurts throw for more yards or less yards than he did last year? Now, remember, he missed 2 games. This year, he might not miss any games. This year, he could miss 4 games. You never know. That's why these numbers are fun and tricky. 3,700 yards for Jalen Hurts passing this year, Johnny Mac. Over under.
I think he went over last year because I think he was at 3701. But he
if he reproduces the 3701, you're a winner if you take the over.
Yeah, I mean, all these. I'll state this right off the bat. People should know, and you kind of alluded to it there. What these bets are really about is somebody staying healthy. So I'm assuming he's going to stay healthy, and if he stays healthy, he's going to go over that number. I do think, even though I'm in the camp that he's not going to dump the football off to the backs a lot. Everybody keeps talking about that. We know Nick Sirianni's quote. We're not paying him more to do less. I believe that. I believe that from an Eagles standpoint. But I do think they want him to get rid of the football a little bit quicker. If you're looking for small areas where he can get better, that's one of them. Making quicker decisions. And I think that comes with experience, and I think that comes with incremental improvement. And I think he will be better. And if he's healthy, and you mentioned he missed 2 games last year, he's going to go over, no doubt, if he plays every single regular season game. I don't even worry about that number. But I do think from a thought process and a planning standpoint, they want the passing yardage to go up a little bit, and they want the rushing yardage to go down a little bit.
All right, next over-under number, and these kind of run against each other. Touchdown passes. We'll get to touchdown rushes in just a second. But touchdown passes, last year Jalen Hurts threw for 22 touchdowns. The over-under number is 22.5. So they set it right at. The yardage was 1 yard below what he threw last year. This year, a half a yard above what he threw, half a touchdown above what he threw last year. 22.5 touchdown passes, over under for Hurts.
Yeah, I'm going to go over for the same reason. One of my, I wouldn't call it a concern, but I hope, and I go back to Donovan McNabb. We all know Donovan McNabb early in his career. He heard the criticism a little bit too much, and he changed his philosophy as a player to try to prove critics wrong. I hope Jalen Hurts, and from all indications, he doesn't let that stuff bother him. But you've heard the people say, you only got 22 touchdown passes last year. That was a big, a big talking point of what critics were left and banging their heads against the wall. Bottom line is he produced touchdowns, and I don't care how you get them. He produced touchdowns. So I hope he's not trying to prove people wrong, and he wants to get to 35 and, say, I can do this. And I don't think he's going to be that. But, I think for the same reason, I think it's going to go up. Not a ton, but I think it's going to go up a little bit from 22.
That would be the 3,700 yards. I think it's a very good number. I'm not sure that it's going to go up. I'm not sure it's going to go down. You are balancing injuries, and nobody knows that without a crystal ball. Yeah, this one I feel more strongly about. I think he's going to throw more touchdown passes. I think that with the amount of receivers that they have, and you have been harping on this since people started to overemphasize, the passing out of the backfield is going to get better for the Eagles. I'm with you. I don't think it's going to get better much. Do I think it's going to get better? Yeah, because I think DeAndre Swift is better at doing it than anybody Eagles had last year. Sorry, Kenny Gainwell. They still have Gainwell, but they've got Swift as well. I think you'll get a couple of touchdown passes that throws out of the backfield. Didn't have that last year. I think that's going to be up. Can he get up to Carson Wentz's? And that just sounds wrong. Carson Wentz's Eagles' most touchdowns in the season record into the 30s, get to 34. I take the under on that one, but I'm going to definitely take over 22.5 touchdown passes. All right. Part of the problem is because he doesn't get touchdown passes, he gets touchdown runs, which you and I both agree, don't care. Doesn't matter to me. As long as you're getting in the end zone, doesn't matter when you throw it at somebody else and take it in on your own. That's a touchdown. Touchdowns are all that matters. Last year, he rushed for 13, which is a lot, easily the most by any quarterback in the National Football League. The over-under this year is 11.5. So not as many as last year, but only one less if you want to cash on the over at 12. Over under 11.5 rushing touchdowns. Jalen loves taking it in. The tush push is still in play this year, Johnny Mac, from the 2-yard line. Not just get firsts, sometimes get touchdowns. How many touchdowns for Jalen Hurts this year?
Yeah, I'm going to go under. I mean, 13's a big number, and they're smart to knock it down off of that. So just the natural regression, sort of like 70 sacks, same type of thing. I always talk about the NFL being a copycat league. It is a copycat league, but it's a slow moving copycat league. So now you also have all defensive coordinators around the league watching film, watching tape, trying to come up with ways to stop certain things. I don't think the tush push matters. When they're at the one, they're going to score, and it's going to be the quarterback. I think it's the other stuff that's going to go down, the 8-7 yard runs, things like that. Just that's more of a regression to the mean bet. If you force me to make this bet, and I'm not going to get suspended by Roger Goodell, but if you were forcing me to make the bet, I would lean on regression to the mean with that number. That's just such a big number, and he had 10 the year before though, so he's right in that area. He's going to have a lot, but push comes to shove, I'm going to go under.
As would I. So you and I are almost on the same page as all of these, some for slightly different reasons, but we agree with the play one way or the other. Last Jalen Hurts over under. Last year he rushed for 760 yards. Nick Gianni can say all that he wants about, I'm not going to ask him to do less, but the Eagles are actually very invested in Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts seriously breaks his leg, the Philadelphia Eagles are seriously screwed. If his career is threatened by an injury this year, they're in deep doo-doo, not just because Marcus Mariota has to come to the rescue off the bench, but if his game needs to drastically change because of this injury, it's going to have years of ramifications on the Eagles. So that's always going to be in the back of everybody's mind. Might not be in the back of Jalen's mind because Jalen Hurts plays football the way he plays football. But the designated running calls, Sirianni and Brian Johnson might be preparing for a game plan during the week and go, wait a minute, we got 9 Jalen designated run plays in there. We got to get that down to 5. We can't be putting him at risk 9 times. So I do think that number is going to come down. They've already done that by setting the Jalen Hurts rushing yards at 700 after he rushed for 760 last year. So they're acknowledging chances are he's going to be less than last season. If they drop it down to 700, is that enough to entice you to go?
Yeah, they just did. I was about to say under. I assume they'd be at 750 or so. I was going to go under. 700, that's too far. He can't help himself, man. He's going to go. He's going to go. And a lot of it has to do with the effectiveness of the running backs as well. There's a lot of uncertainty there. I think most of us, certainly me included, think it's going to be behind, but you still have to see how it shakes out. A lot of uncertainty at the running back position. You don't have a 1,269-yard rusher Remember, and Jody, he got whatever it was last year, 760 with the 1,269-yard rusher. So the 700, that's too little for me. That's too low.
And it's so tough to analyze Jalen's rushes because he averaged 4.6 yards per carry. But a whole bunch of those were 1 and 2 yards at a time on the sneaks, which draws the average per carry down. He also has a ton of double-digit runs. I'm going to suggest that it actually drops below 700. This is the first one you and I disagree on. I think it'll be in the 600, somewhere thereabouts. Again, this is all presuming health, that he plays all 17 or at least 16. If Jalen Hurts plays 12, we're going under across the board, and nobody can know that. That's why the bet is out there. That's why it's fun. And I'm going to even leaning on maybe he misses one game or parts of 2 games. I do not think he's going to get 700 yards. And they did a good they made it debatable by moving it down to 760. But despite, Johnny and I had more overs than unders, the Eagles are still in very good shape, and the favorites to win the NFC, and Jalen Hurts will be in the MVP mix again this season if he's close to any of these numbers. All right, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Bird 65. I see we have in our waiting room our first guest. He likes Thursdays. He's good on Thursdays. He gets up early for us on Thursdays. Johnny Stolness from Bleeding Green Nation going to join us next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Thursday morning, get together on the JAKIB YouTube channel. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. We got John Stolness with us from Bleeding Green Nation and his Eye on the Enemy Eagles podcast. John, how you getting through this without this Eagles? Well, we know you're watching the Phillies, but we know football's in your heart as well. How you getting through this summer before the Eagles get back to camp?
Yeah, it is. It's luckily I have a second sport to fall back on, but really it's a lot of dreaming right now because you look at this Eagles team and you think to yourself, this has got a chance to be another special season. It's a harder schedule, I know, but you just kind of looking forward to seeing what Jalen Hurts can do. It's a lot of just gleeful anticipation. This franchise is in such a good place compared to so many others. It's fun.
Yeah, a lot of talent, but I always go back to Peter King in the offseason saying can't find a weakness. I have a natural contrarian nature, John. So, but for years I would say Howie Roseman is a top 5 GM. And now that everybody loves Howie, I say, whoa, slow down a little. He still makes some mistakes because he's not, he's a human being. I think it's natural. And we talk about the linebackers and the safeties, a lot of uncertainty there. I do want to talk about Jordan Davis first. And I was on a show yesterday, and I keep getting this. And I keep getting, Jordan Davis was high first-round pick. He's got to get 6 sacks, this and that. What am I missing? Why do people... Generally, I guess I'll phrase it this way. If you're a defensive tackle who's a good pass rusher, Fletcher Cox in his prime still can do it well. That's the hope for Jalen Carter to be that type of player. Whether you want to look at Jeffrey Simmons or Aaron Donald is, a little bit out of reach for anybody. But those are the types of players. With Jordan Davis, I look at Haloti Ngata in his prime. Not when he was here, but in his prime.
Right.
Guys like that, Pat Williams, Gilbert Brown, these big run stuffing guys who make it easier for others to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Is that worthy of being as high a draft pick as Jordan Davis was, especially for a Super Bowl contender? And then the second part, John, I'm getting too wordy. I don't want to bog you down, but the second part, if you want Jordan Davis to get 6-8 sacks because he's such a great athlete, who the hell are you sitting to let him rush the passer on third down? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I think Jordan Davis, when he was selected where he was, I think that there was the anticipation that he would grow as a pass rusher because I think obviously he was already a gifted run blocker, and that has a lot of value. Like if he turns out to be Haloti Ngata in his prime, then I think that's probably worth where he was drafted. That being said, now you do have so many different options on that defensive line. I don't know that you need Jordan Davis to do all those things you're asking him to do. And so you did have to spend 2 high first round picks on defensive tackles these last 2 years in order to kind of give yourself a good foundation and a good future there. But if each of those guys does their job, like if Jalen Carter is the pass rushing guy and Jordan Davis is the guy who can really be stout in the middle, then I don't think anybody will have a problem with those 2 picks and how they all worked out. I think it's one more year where you struggle to get Jordan Davis on the field in pass rushing situations. But at a certain point, Fletcher Cox is going to hang him up. Who knows how long Fletcher Cox, how healthy he'll be this year as he continues to age. So, I think there'll be more playing time for him this year. I know there are other guys they want to get into the mix. I think if Jordan Davis shows significant improvement rushing the passer, he'll take time away from Fletcher Cox. They'll figure out a way to get productive players on the field and keep them on the field. So I don't really worry about will there be enough snaps for everybody. I think if Jordan Davis is out playing Fletcher Cox, especially in rushing the passer, I think he'll play, and I think everybody will acknowledge that that's the right thing to do.
Fletcher Cox was, by the way, the guy who took the most snaps at defensive tackle, even more so than Javon Hargrave, who had that many more sacks. But the guy who was on the field more than anybody else to tackle for the Eagles this year was Fletcher Cox. I kind of agree with you. I think they're going to push Davis's snaps a little bit this year. I think they made the move to get Carter because they plan on playing him, not bringing him along slowly. Last year, let it be known, he wasn't always happy with Jonathan Gannon's schemes and the way he was being used. Any chance for that being an issue there if this year for the new defensive coordinator, Sean Desai, if Fletcher isn't getting as many snaps as he's used to or thinks he deserves?
I think Fletcher, and I don't know him personally, but I think Fletcher needs to, if he's still having an issue with how many snaps he's getting at this stage of his career, understanding that the Eagles have made these investments in these two guys in the first round, there needs to be some kind of a recalibration. So I don't think he really has any room to argue about anything. He's had a brilliant career. You know, he's one of the greatest defensive linemen ever to play in this city. But he's at a stage in his career where he's probably more of a backup secondary type guy in a rotation that has good defensive backs in it. I mean, good defensive tackles in it. So I don't know what Sean Desai's defense is going to give us. That's one of the big question marks, right? I mean, how similar will it look to Jonathan Gannon? In what ways will it be different? Because it'll be different in some ways, but in what ways will it be different? How will they utilize these guys? Will there be more stunts? Will there be more exotic defensive schemes? Will it be vanilla? Will it? I mean, it's pin their ears back and let them rush the quarterback. I don't know, and I think it's a fair question to ask whether or not any of these guys really will have issues with how they're used and how they're deployed, and whether there will be some growing pains for Sean Desai, maybe at the start of the season, kind of like there was for Nick Sirianni at the start of his head coaching tenure. He's probably not going to come in and hit the ground running with a brilliant defensive scheme. Might take him a few weeks to kind of get his feet under him. And I think this team's been pretty good about, if there are complaints, if there are problems, they don't really make them a public issue very often. We haven't really had a whole lot of those kinds of player coaching controversies over the last few years. And so I think that's a testament to guys like Fletcher Cox and the other veterans in the locker room.
Yeah, Fletcher might be the last one that Chody brought up early in the first year of the Sirianni Gannon regime. And then there was Chauncey after the Super Bowl, but he was on his way out. And I think that was more bitterness than anything else. Also on the defensive line, hey, don't sleep on Milton Williams, man. Everybody forgets about that guy. They are so deep on the defensive line. That's what I'm saying. If you're like, so typically the Eagles like to use the 50 fronts to stop the run, and that's where Jordan Davis will get the majority of his snaps. And then they go to 40 fronts when it's time to rush the passer, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, blah, blah, blah. And then you have Reddick, you have Sweat, you have Brandon Graham, you have Nolan Smith on the outside, you have Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams. That was kind of my point with Jordan Davis. Like, who's coming off the field? And even if you're taking Fletcher off the field, well, then Milton comes on the field as a pass rusher. He's really athletic. He's really good. I don't know. And by the way, I don't think this is a problem for the Eagles at all. I don't think they care. But it's just interesting to me that, and Jody and I talk about this all the time, John, the expectations of, oh, he's the 13th pick, he's got to do this, versus, hey, they're trying to win a stinking Super Bowl. And they got a lot of pieces that fit perfectly before you start thinking about, oh, I'm going to take Fletcher Cox off the field and put Jordan Davis on the field so he can get 6 sacks. Who gives a flying, you know what? You get 70. Get 70 again, you're going to be happy. Well, they're not going to get 70, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Do these expectations affect the team at all? Do you think it has a chance to affect the team?
I mean, I agree with you. I think this team's all in on getting back to the Super Bowl and winning it this time around. And whatever they have to do with the personnel in order to give themselves the best chance of doing that, they'll do it. They would be silly to shoot them nose off to spite their face just to get Jordan Davis on the field and get him a certain number of sacks or pass rushing opportunities. Like if Milton Williams is showing that he's the better pass rusher, he plays in front of Jordan Davis. And if Jordan Davis has a second year that the numbers wise doesn't look that impressive, but the Eagles, like you said, are not notching 70 sacks. It's why really Jordan Davis's year last year kind of flies under the radar. Nobody really talks about the season that he had last season all that much. Certainly there isn't that negative connotation of like, oh, is he a first round bust kind of a thing because of how good the defensive line was. There really was no argument for how he was used and his production levels. And the fact that he was hurt certainly was a big part of that. But, you know, I would love to see Jordan Davis emerge as this big star. I mean, coming out of college, we just heard freak athlete, enormous talent, so much more room to grow. Great run defender. And if all he does this year is stop the run, and he's on the field on first and second downs, gets the occasional rush on the pass or the occasional quarterback hit, and this team is as good as it was defensively last year, I'm fine with it. And I think most Eagles fans would be fine with it too.
All right, Johnny, yes, I guess today's spit stirrer, because I asked you about Fletcher not potentially being happy with his snaps. I'm going to ask you about another guy who I'm not sure everything's going to be peaches and cream with this year, and that would be Darius Slay. At a Detroit charity golf thing this week, he was asked about Matt Patricia, and he said, "Oh, just another day at the office. Everything's going to be fine."
Yeah.
Well, that was not the way it was left in Detroit. So I tip my hat to Darius for not falling prey to a leading question in a Detroit situation.
Yeah.
But eventually they're both coming back to Philadelphia, and they did not get along when they were in Detroit. Now, Matt Patricia isn't his position coach, but he's a defensive assistant, so they're going to be around each other. You buy the fact that Darius Slay is just going to pull on his helmet and go to work? Johnny liked to call a couple of the Eagle defensive backs last year. They're guys with big personality, which need to be worked with and coached up and dealt with when they're not necessarily happy. Darius Slay is one of them. Might not have as bigger personality as CJ GJ, but Darius isn't one to just go along to get along either.
Right.
Any issues between Patricia and Slay this year?
Yeah, that was an interesting decision by Nick Sirianni and the Eagles to bring Matt Patricia in. It would seem to me there are a lot of different options they could use to bring in defensive assistants, and to go out and get somebody that had as public a spat with their star cornerback, who they just re-signed to an extension recently. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense on its surface, right? I mean, so yeah, what are they? I think that all of these guys can be grown-ups. And I think that Matt Patricia, maybe there's a little bit more humility because he's not the guy, he's not in charge of the anything in a big way. He's under Sean Desai. There are other defensive coaches who will be over him. And so unless it's a pure personality thing, like these guys just can't stand each other personally or whatever it is, I think they'll be okay. But there were a few times last year where Darius was, he said some things, especially after the Dallas game, where it seemed, throwing his teammate under the bus a little bit here and there. And Darius always has a little bit of an issue with taking full responsibility for mistakes that he makes on the field. And so there's a little bit of immaturity there. It's something to keep an eye on. I can't say that I'm not worried about it, because Darius Slay's going to be here for a while. So there's another couple years at least. So they better figure it out, because there's a Super Bowl to win. And I think when he was in Detroit, they weren't winning anything. And so that factors into it too. There was a losing franchise, a losing culture. Darius Slay had lost a lot. Here, it's a different situation. It's a different culture. It's a different locker room. The expectations are this team is going to get back to the Super Bowl and hopefully win it this time around. And so I think there's just a different set of priorities. And at this point, Matt Patricia is not making the final decisions on anything. So I'm a little optimistic that it'll be fine, but it was a weird decision to bring him in.
Yeah, it was very weird. I'm glad you brought that up, Jody. Now, I'm going to disagree with you guys from this perspective. Big personality, Darius Slay, CJ Gardner-Johnson, big personalities. One's a good teammate, one's a not so good teammate. So that Darius Slay typically is a very good teammate. Voted team captain for a reason. I always tell that story when Devin Allen got here. He was running at the Penn relays. Like, nobody knew Devin Allen. He got the guys together to go down to watch him. He's very, engaging, great teammate. Now, you bring up the Josiah Scott thing. That to me was more of, he's pissed off at people on social media saying he made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake. Josiah Scott made the mistake on that particular play. And he's trying to, as he says, people don't know ball. And he gets angry at the fans. Now, I'll be the first to say, get the hell off social media. I mean, especially if you're a player. So I agree with that part of it, but I disagree. Slay's a great teammate to to those people. So that's where I'll leave him there. But the Patricia standpoint, yeah, they don't get along. So my question to you, John, put on the Nick Sirianni hat and say, why? Now I've heard, well, to beat the AFC East. Really? You need Matt Patricia to beat the AFC East? And by the way, with Jody's Jets, Aaron Rodgers is new. What is Matt Patricia other than losing to him all the time in Detroit? I guess he knows how to lose to him.
Yeah.
He knows how to beat Kansas City, does he? I've heard that. And do you need Matt Patricia? It is a strange hiring. It is a strange hiring. And then you add this staff position didn't exist. They created it for Matt Patricia. And my second point, John, is if you're Sean Desai and you see this guy on the same staff with this big reputation who's been a defensive coordinator for many years, a head coach, he's got the Belichick genius tab. He's been with the greatest coach in NFL history. As a young defensive coordinator, he's done it for 1 year in Chicago. Is he going to be looking over his shoulder because Matt Patricia's in the building? It's a very strange decision for Nick Sirianni to bring in Matt Patricia.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that possibility exists for sure. It was Matt Patricia, all that New England aura, all that Bill Belichick, whatever scent was on him. It didn't exactly carry with Matt Patricia to Detroit when he became the head coach, right? I mean, that New England culture just kind of fell off. And we've seen New England assistant head coaches flop pretty much everywhere else they've gone when they've tried to be head coaches. So that Bill Belichick aura, that whatever it is that he's got, it only extends as far as the Massachusetts state border. And then at that point, I think it evaporates. So if there's some kind of New England mystique thing here that the Eagles are trying to bring aboard so that they can find a way to match up with the Bills and find a way to match up with the Dolphins and the Jets, I don't see as that being, terribly effective. So there must be something Matt Patricia does other than get beat by the Philly special that makes them think that he has some value here. I don't know what that is. I would be fascinated to hear from Sean Desai talk about that a little bit more in depth at some point, or Nick Sirianni to talk about that a little bit more in depth, to go out of your way to create a position for a guy who did not have any success in Detroit and who openly feuded with one of your best stars. It's perplexing, to say the least. And to create a position for a guy, apparently to do something that no one else in the league could do, otherwise you wouldn't have created a position for one person in particular. I'd love to know what that special talent is. I mean, is he a talented musician in his off time and we're not aware of this? Like, I don't know what it is.
Johnny, you got Darius Slay on a bigger pedestal as far as a teammate goes than I do. He's no Jalen Hurts. He's certainly better than CJ. GJ, I'll give you that. But it'll be very interesting to see how good a teammate he is this year, because I know good diehard Eagle fans that watch Birds 365 remember this, but the casuals may not. Eagles absolutely floated a story that they were going to release him. It was a done deal. We sat here on Birds 365 and for 2 days talked about how the hell are they going to replace Darius Slay? They're going to release him. Oh, shoot, they got a contract redone with Darius Slay. They did that on purpose to try and get him to the table and realize, do you want to go out on free agent? We're making you a fair offer here, Darius. You better take it. Otherwise, you're going to have to go there. I guarantee you that did not go over well with Slay. Anytime a team throws you up against the wall, that does not play well in your mind. So we'll see if he's as good a teammate this year. And the whole one for all for one, we got to get back to the Super Bowl. Javon Hargrave, right? Led the Eagles in sacks last year. San Francisco 49ers put more money on the table. He decided I can go sleep with that enemy. So the all for one and one for all thing, we'll see if that holds sway. And I do wonder about Slay because I don't understand for a millisecond.
Well, I'll just say I'll jump. I agree, but that had more to do with the age than than he's a bad teammate or anything like that. They were just making a football decision, saying, all right, if CJ takes this $8 million, whatever they were going to offer him, and we get Bradbury convince Bradbury to come back. We're going to let Slay move on. That was the decision. But yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with his being a bad teammate. I think it was, he's 32. He had a great start to the season, kind of faltered down the stretch, wasn't as good. And it's the old better to give up on a player a year early than a year late mentality. And, corners in this league at 32, 33, and it starts getting a little shaky. And that might happen. And if CJ accepts the contract, he's probably not here. And maybe he does get a little bit bitter, but I can tell you, he and his wife did not want to leave here. Now he felt he had to at a certain point, and he got close with Baltimore. But and I'm talking purely amongst his teammates, he is very, very well respected. Very well respected. That's all I'm saying. And they voted him a team captain. That wasn't Nick Sirianni saying, all right, this is my captain. That's the players voting him to be a captain. So, and he freaking cried. He was so happy about it. I mean, he cares about his teammates. That's all I'm trying to say. Acts like a goofball. So I think it gets mixed, but he's really a good guy to his teammates. That's
right.
all
And
I'm trying to say.
If I made it sound like they were squeezing him on the contract because he wasn't a good teammate. No. I understand football decision age. Irrelevant. If you're Darius Slay, you don't care why they are squeezing you. You only care that they are squeezing you. You don't care if it's for age. You don't care if it's production. You don't care if it's because you're a good teammate, a bad teammate, and a mediocre teammate. You're squeezing me? Really? How many times I made the Pro Bowl and you're going to release my ass? Yeah, no, Darius I guarantee you didn't take that well. Now, we got the deal done, and he and his wife want to be here. I understand all that. In the back of his head, I'm just very interested to see if he's as good a one-for-all, all-for-one guy this year after the Eagles went through the negotiation that they did with him this past season. All right, I got a kind of off-the-wall question for you, Johnny Stolman.
All right.
Howie Roseman takes pride in the Eagles having at least one, if he can get more than one, he'll take them. Undrafted free agents make the team. Last year, not only did Blankenship make the team, he had to start games for them because of the injury to CJ. And now year number 2, at least as we sit here, he's penciled in as a starting safety for the Eagles and the general manager and the coaching staff. But I think it's more Howie because he's the guy who's got to get the guy signed, and then the coach has got to coach him up. Take a lot of pride in that. And Eagles have been good at that and have had guys that every other team passed on, and then they signed and got them to contribute to a team. Who's that guy this year for the Eagles? Who's the undrafted free agent that will make the team? As of right now, don't know if anybody's going to be jumping into the lineup and playing on a consistent basis, but makes the team, special teams, whatever role they're playing. Who's the most likely undrafted free agent to make the Birds?
I'd be lying if I said I've done a ton of homework on the undrafted free agents.
Yeah, I know. It's an unfair question. I'm a dick.
I think if
you're
looking at
I thought you were going to go. I thought
position.
John, I thought you were going to go.
No.
Okafor. No, I'm just making it up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think if you're looking at some of these, some of the positions here, they got a punter, right? I think a punt. This guy Ty Zentner. From Kansas State, you bring him into training camp. If he out punts everybody, they need a punter. They need to figure out what they're going to do there. So maybe that's your guy. I still think they could use a second or third tight end to kind of back up Dallas Goedert. So maybe this Brady Russell kid shows you enough in training camp that you could conceivably
there too.
Lock him in. And then I think they got this linebacker. I'm trying to remember his name. Ben
Van Sumeren.
What's that?
Ben Van Sumeren.
Ben Van Sumeren. That's right. Van Sumeren. Yeah, it's a good name. And he's apparently a smart guy. He's and linebackers are one of those places that I think the Eagles have had. You mentioned some of the success they've had with undrafted free agents, and linebackers a position where they've typically had some of that success. And so they need linebacker help, right? They're going to look to try and get linebacker help wherever they can. Van Sumeren's like third on the depth chart right now, but he's behind, Sean Bradley, who I don't think they have a whole lot of confidence in. Christian Ellis, I know, is a guy who's getting talked about a lot. He's looked pretty good in OTA, so his stock might be starting to rise. But I think there's positions to be won there. Like we've talked about Nicholas Morrow before. Is he going to make the team even? So I think there's jobs to be won at those three different positions, and that's a spot where if you're bringing in an undrafted free agent to hopefully do what Reed Blankenship did last year and take advantage of that opportunity when it arises, it would be at positions where you're kind of shallow anyway. And maybe one of the cornerbacks that they brought in, they say, oh, maybe he transitions better to safety. Let's see if we can see about, maybe striking the iron twice there. And if getting another undrafted free agent at safety. So I think those would probably be the guys in the positions I'm looking at.
Yeah. And I would add Trevor Reed, offensive tackle from Louisville. They always like to give Jeff Stoutland a project, and he's a great athlete. And I could see Stoutland saying, all right, I can make something out of this kid if we get him into an NFL weight room and all that kind of stuff. Trevor Reed. And then the receivers, Joseph Nada from Clemson, Jaden Hazelwood, who played with Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. Then he transferred to Arkansas. The Eagles need help at receiver. Nada's a really big kid. He might be a Zach Pascal, if you want to have that sort of trait, maybe that. But Jody's right. Every year, last year it was Josh Jobe, Reed Blankenship, and Josh Sills.
Right, offensive line.
So they kept three, and that was a Super Bowl roster. So for people that don't think the undrafted guys have a chance, they have a chance. And all GMs are like that. Look at what I found. Look at what I found.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Howie's no different from that perspective. I will say, though, John, and I only got to see the Eagles for 100 minutes in the spring. That's it. But I got to tell you, Aaron Cepas blew Ty Zettner out of the water. Now maybe behind the scenes, Ty, I don't know. Maybe we showed up and he got nervous, but man, Aaron Cepas blew him out of the water. So if he's going to get competition, it might be from outside the organization. They might have to go looking for another punter. But hey, 100 minutes is 100 minutes. That's not much. Maybe he just had a bad day.
Yes,
you never know with this stuff.
The Eagles actually are going to have a training camp, which will be good. They got a lot of downtime, but they, like everyone else, will have a training camp, and that's where the punter will be decided. All right, Johnny, yes, we did this earlier in this week. I'm interested in your take on this. Eagles individual game tickets went on sale the other day. I'm guessing they sold in a matter of hours, if not minutes, because they've got such a season ticket base that they don't have that many individual tickets left around. So I'm sure they were snapped up on the internet in no time flat. But you've got 8 home games this year. Pretty damn good home schedule. Some quality opponents there. If you have it in front of you, you know the teams they're playing. If not, I'll run them down real quick for you. The home games are Minnesota Thursday night early, Washington after, Miami mid-October, Dallas first Sunday in November, Buffalo a couple of weeks after that, San Francisco first in December, Giants and Arizona late December on Christmas and New Year's Eve. If you only could get tickets for one game, out of the 8 home games this year, what's the must-see live, game for John Stolnis this year on Eagles Sked?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I did a ranking of all their home games for Bleeding Green Nation a few weeks ago. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, the game I had at the top of the list was 49ers. Normally you'd say the Cowboys, and you'd be right to say the Cowboys. But I'm not even sure if the Cowboys would be my number 2 this year because, first of all, that you want the 49ers to come back into Philadelphia and you want to shut them up again, right? The 49ers, I think, have the second best roster in the NFL, despite the fact that it's still uncertain who their quarterback is going to be. But with how much they've been talking this offseason, the arrogance, the whining, I think that's the best home game of the year because of what happened in the NFC Championship game last year and the sour grapes that the 49ers players have displayed. That to me is the game I would choose. And as far as number 2, it's kind of a toss up between Buffalo and Dallas. Like you get Dallas every year. Dallas comes in every year. Buffalo hasn't. I don't think. I try to remember. Were the Bills at their height with Jim Kelly? Were they ever in Philadelphia? I can't remember a game if they were. And so we don't really get a chance to see the Bills when they're really good with a star quarterback like Josh Allen like this. That I think might be my number 2. Slightly ahead of the Dallas Cowboys. But I think both of those teams are far behind the 49ers as the game that I would want to see the most, just because of all of this stuff going on outside, off the football field, all the stuff surrounding it and the revenge factor and all that kind of stuff.
At John Stolness, no sour grapes for me, John, when you're on the program, does a tremendous job at Bleeding Green Nation. At Billy Penn, listen to the good fight there. The Phillies at 500, I believe. We're at 500, is that correct?
Yep, back to 500. Yep, scaled the mountain.
Yeah, scaled the mountain. Now you can start heading towards the playoffs again. Hopefully get in the dance, and you never know what happens for the Phillies. Right. But last one from me, we've been talking about this all week because it was interesting to me on day 2 of OTAs that was open to reporters. Kind of jogged my memory. Hey, a bunch of these guys are going to be getting maintenance days in training camp. The Fletcher Coxes of the world, Jason Kelce, obviously on that list. Why it's interesting is because Cam Jurgens is penciled in to be the right guard. Now, when Jason Kelce isn't practicing, you need Cam Jurgens to play center. Or do you? Do you need to get him more reps at right guard? At least for one day. And they don't even do team drills, so it really doesn't matter. But for one day in the spring, they moved Jurgens back to center when Kelce had the maintenance day. And it was Tyler Steen taking first-team reps. Is that the right way to go? Do you need to get Cam Jurgens ready to play right guard? Is he good enough to where he can toggle back and forth in training camp? Do you like that plan?
I think if Jeff Stoutland's doing it, it's a good plan. I think with I think with Cam Jurgens, I don't think a day a week at center to give Jason Kelce a breather. I don't necessarily think that's going to push him back in terms of being able to compete for the right guard spot. He just might not be the best fit for that job to begin with based on his size. Tyler Steen's a bigger kid. They might like him for that spot anyway, but want to give Cam Jurgens a chance to compete for it. And obviously we'll see how that shakes out. But I don't think moving him to center, once or twice a week will necessarily hurt him in the right guard competition. I'm sure, got a lot of reps at both positions last year. I think that they have a pretty good idea what he can do at both of those different positions. And so you might not need to see him as much at right guard. You really probably want to see Tyler Steen a little bit more there so you have a better sense of what he can do. So the fact that Cam Jurgens was in the building all last year, you've got a pretty good foundation of information with regards to how he plays both of those different spots. So if Jeff Stoutland's doing it, man, I trust Jeff Stoutland implicitly when it comes to how he moves his guys around the offensive line.
All right. You took me down a wormhole there, Stolness. Trying to remember the Bills-Eagles in Philadelphia during the Jim Kelly years. I got to remember that, right? That's me and Mac now together on WIP.
That's right.
He a former Buffalo guy.
Yeah. I'll be able to tell us. You might want to hold that, Jody.
Yeah, well, I will, but since we got John here now, we can run it by him. They played in November of 1996. Kelly went, man, how do I not remember this? 11 of 22. Jim Kelly, top of his game, 11 of 22 for 112 yards. Where did that Eagle defense come from in 1996?
Well, that was... Sorry, I was going to say that's Ray Rhodes territory, right? I mean, that was the year they lost in the playoffs to the 49ers.
Yeah.
112. I can't believe Jim Kelly had this bad a game here in the midst of his tremendous run and the Bills came in 7-2. The Eagles were 6-3. So they were both good teams at the time. Wasn't like it was a mismatch or anything else. But the Eagles won 24-17, and Buffalo scored on a blocked punt. So Kelly and that superior offense scored all of 10 points.
Yeah,
Damn good defense.
Ty Detmer gouged Jim Kelly. How could you not remember that? Ty Detmer threw for 315 yards. I just looked it up, Jody.
Right. And a 23-yard touchdown pass to Kevin Turner out of the backfield. That's what we need out of Jalen this year. Get the ball to the back, out of the backfield. Kevin Turner, oh, man.
Yeah.
How do I not remember the details of that game? As I look at it on paper or on a computer screen, I go, damn, that's a good win for the Eagles. Sticking it to the Bills. Ty Detmer. Yeah. I have no recollection of that game. Wow. None. Either. Zero. Yeah. Mac now
it should be the Ty Detmer game, I would assume.
That whole 96 season is a blur because we remember 95 because of, the 4th and 1 and the Detroit Lions playoff game and all that. Ray Rhodes' first season. It was 96. They had that James Willis return against Dallas, and that was it.
That I remember. That was in Dallas for. We were sitting in the end zone. He ran it right toward me. Right. I remember that game. No, I don't remember Buffalo against the Eagles.
No, me either.
Shame on me for that. All right. This last 2 games in Arizona, have they officially turned the corner? The Phil's good to go here now that they're back at 500. Is only upward trajectory from here, Johnny S?
Yeah, you know what? They're playing Dancing on My Own in the locker rooms now, so I think the vibes are good. The pitching staff's come around, and, if they can get Aaronola on track, oh boy, because the offense is starting to swing the bats a little bit. So, yeah, things are looking up. That's a good team they're playing in Arizona this week, and they've taken 2 out of the first 3, so they're playing well.
Today would be a key game. Johnny, yes, always a pleasure. Mr. Stolness for Bleeding Green Nation. Check out his Eye on the Enemy Eagles podcast as well. And whenever he jumps on with us, we appreciate him. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
Johnny Stolness here with us on Birds 365. Yes, the aforementioned Glenn Macnow. Oh, yeah, I'm shaming myself. I'm being honest with you, folks. I don't BS you when I get on here on Birds 365. If I know something, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't know. I don't remember that game. I was doing a show in Philadelphia with a Bills guy, former Buffalonian, Glenn Macnow, and I'm sure we talked that game up all week. I'm sure I rubbed it in his face a little bit afterwards. And I don't remember that game a little bit. It just
Now I was paying absolutely no attention to the Eagles at that stage, so no surprise that I don't remember. But that's a bad job by you, Jody. You're on the air with Glenn Macnow.
How do I
Mr. Buffalo? And did Ty Detmer play a lot that year? I don't know. But man, couldn't have been good if he did.
Don't remember Ty Detmer out of the backfield to Kevin Turner for a 23-yard touchdown pass. Sorry, I don't remember it. All right, we'll bring that up with Mac now. We're going to talk all things Eagles with him as well. We'll have some fun shooting the breeze with Glenn. All right, one thing I want to run by Johnny Mac when we come back. Again, national story has no effect whatsoever in Philadelphia, but it could have an effect going forward. We sit here in July. Coaches on the hot seat. Nobody's on the hot seat. They're all on vacation right now. Why would you talk about? Because the hot seat will get hot at some point during the upcoming year. And you can look at it at any time during the year and go, yeah, this seat could potentially get hot. We're not saying they're hot right now, but depending on how the season goes, their seat could get kind of warm. I'll tell you this right now. Andy Reid, not on a hot seat.
No,
big friggin' seat for Andy, but there is no way his seat gets hot this year. He's in damn good shape. Nick Sirianni not far behind on the warmth under his chair. Not much at this stage, but it did get kind of hot on Doug Peterson pretty fast. So you never say never with the owner of the Eagles. But there are a good number of guys who come into the year and the seat's already warm and it could get hot. I'm going to run them by Johnny Mac, a group of 8 NFL coaches, and see who he thinks by the end of the season the seat will not only be roasting, but one that they're going to have to get up and get off because they're told their services are no longer needed. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac guys, Johnny Mac, Jordy Mac here with you on Birds 365 in the midst of the Eagles summer. It's most of the NFL summer, but there are actually teams having mini camps this week. And Eagles are on vacay, so I want to spread the conversation around to a spot that may or may not have an effect on the Eagles down the road. But CBS Sports.com came up with a list, and I like their list, and that's why I'm using it, of coaches that could be on the hot seat at some point going forward. That as the season plays itself out, their job could be at risk, could even cost them their job by the end of the season. But off what they've done and expectations and everything else, you can conjecture their seat could get hot at some point in this upcoming season. So they put together a list of 8. I like their list. 3 of those coaches actually made the playoffs last year. 5 didn't. 3 did. Johnny Mac, I need you to tell me, you got a pen and a piece of paper?
Yes, I do.
Write these down, and then after I go through the list, I'm going to ask you how many will be in a seat that'll be too hot to stay seated in, and they'll be told their services are no longer needed at the end of this year. So a little prediction, prognostication involved here as well. The coaches that made the playoffs this past year: Mike McCarthy, Dallas Cowboys; Todd Bowles, yeah, there's a significant change down there. Without that quarterback that they used to have, pretty good player. Todd Bowles of Tampa, Brandon Staley of the Chargers, and the guys who didn't make the playoffs: Kevin Stefanski of the Browns, Ron Rivera of the Commanders. So that's 2 of the opposition teams in the NFC versus the Eagles. That McDaniels guy who almost got hired here in Philadelphia, is his time up in Vegas. Dennis Allen down in New Orleans, and Alex Smith in Atlanta. How many of those coaches do you think will not be the head coach in 2024 on June 15th, if that's today's date. I think it's the 15th.
Well, I mean, typically it's going to be 7, somewhere in that range, 6 or 7, maybe 8. You gave 8 in a bad season when you talk about Black Monday. But you know what? I like the list. All those guys are definitely on the hot seat. But I think you could add some guys.
All right, you want to add? Go ahead, go for it.
Well, and these are all sort of, guys who aren't proven. I think there's one proven guy who's on the hot seat, who has won a lot of games and has a lot of success, but that's Sean McDermott. If things go badly in Buffalo, don't be surprised if he's on the hot seat. Now, if they're a good team, it doesn't matter. And then there's a couple guys. Arthur Smith was the one sort of young coach, and he is on the hot seat. There are some other young coaches on the hot seat. Eberflus in Chicago, another bad year. He's got to show improvement. Now, I know you think they're going to improve, but they win 3-4 games again. He's out. Your guy, Robert Saleh, he got to win. He's got to win or he's done. Now, again, I think he is going to win. I think they're going to be a good team, but he's definitely on the hot seat. And then another somewhat proven guy, Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. They're going in a negative direction. So I would just add those names. But of the group,
right. Part of this is, and you've touched on it, I've touched on it, part of it's speculation.
Yeah.
That you have to, well, this is what I see happening for this year, and that's what's going to make the seat hot. If you don't think Buffalo's going to fall apart, then Sean McDermott's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So you're right. If you want to play worst case scenario, you can probably expand the list to 20 out of the 32.
Well, there are certain guys. I mean, there are certain guys that even if they have a bad season, they're fine. So I think there is a demarcation line. The entrenched guys, we know the Andy, Belichick, the entrenched, but even guys like John Harbaugh.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Patriots go 4-13, which I don't think they're going to, but since we're doing worst case scenario, Belichick still the coach of the Patriots a year after?
Yeah, if he wants to be. Now, at some point, Bill's going to say, you know what, I'm done with this. And I don't think they're ever firing Bill Belichick. Nor do I think they should. But I do think there's a chance in the next few years. How old is Bill? I mean, he's over 70.
I think, yeah.
So at some point, but I do think he's going to walk away on his own. Mike Tomlin, a lot of people in Pittsburgh have said, guys, I don't know when he got that job, like 2007, somewhere in that range. Never had a losing season. Never had a freaking losing season. They shouldn't fire him. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot of entrenched guys who can keep their jobs, even with a bad season. I think the most likely of the list you gave me, Bowles, I think, is in deep trouble because it's going to be a bad team. And I don't think they look at him as the long-term answer. Barely or unfairly, and it's probably unfair. Stefanski, I think, is in trouble. If Deshaun Watson doesn't kick in, man, I think he's done. I think Ron Rivera's in trouble. Washington, Josh Harris has taken over that team. It's probably going to be approved before week 1. That they got 2 dates already set up, and one in July, one in August. So Daniel Snyder's going to be out of there. Not that Daniel Snyder would help Ron or hurt him, but new ownership tends to want their own guys in there. So I think it's a very difficult situation. If McDaniel has another bad season, he's out. And Arthur Smith, I think, is out. I mean, that's not a good football team. They build it incorrectly. They got a bunch of skill players. They don't have a quarterback. I think they're going to have another bad season. He's going to be out. Boy, Nick Sirianni is such man. He is. We talk about the chasm between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and wide receiver 3 on the Eagles. The only bigger chasm might be Nick Sirianni and the second best coach from his class, from his hiring class, because those guys all stink. And Nick is reaching playoffs and Super Bowls, with all due respect to your guy, Robert Saleh. But I think, Robert's going to be fine, because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to save him. But if they go 8-9, he's out. He's out too. Joe Douglas might be out as well.
All right. So out of the 8 I gave you, give me the top 2 most likely to keep their job. Because you and I agree, a whole bunch of them are in a lot of trouble. That seat's going to get real hot real fast during the year. Out of McCarthy, Bowles, Staley, Stefanski, Rivera, McDaniels, Allen, and Smith, who are the 2 most likely to keep their jobs?
I think McCarthy, Jerry Jones over the years has, lessened when it comes to coaching. There's a lot of talk. Well, he doesn't want to lose Kellen Moore. He's going to fire McCarthy every year. Well, he let Kellen Moore go and kept McCarthy. He doesn't want Dan Quinn to go. He's going to fire McCarthy and hire Dan Quinn. Well, he let Dan Quinn do 75 interviews, got him back anyway. By no means am I saying it's 90%, but I think, it's at least 60-40 that McCarthy keeps his job for 2 reasons. One, Jerry doesn't like his change, like people assume, for whatever weird reason. And I think they're going to be a pretty good team. If they crap the bed in the playoffs again, that's certainly not going to help them. But I think on this list, he's one of the safer ones. And I think Dennis Allen, even though I'm not a fan, I think they're going to be better than people expect. And anytime you're sort of overachieve, I think there's a chance that you get kept.
Which is unfortunately for the Eagles, because they still are owed a 2nd-round draft pick from the Saints in the trade that they made on draft day, not this past draft, but the draft before. So if the Saints are better, that 2nd-round draft pick isn't going to be as high as.
What are your 2 guys, Jody?
What's that?
What are your 2 guys?
Oh, I agree with one of your 2. I think Dennis Allen's going to stick around in New Orleans, because I think they made a major upgrade at quarterback by getting Derek Carr. They've been making it up at quarterback the last couple of years. Since Drew Brees walked away, they've kind of done paint by numbers stuff. I actually think Carr is going to make them a better football team, and they still have one of the better defenses in the National Football League. I think they are absolutely the team to beat in that division, which may turn up as the weakest division in football again, which I think will keep Arthur Smith right where he's at. I think it's New Orleans and Atlanta in that division. I think Tampa and Carolina, even though I'm a young fan, I think he's going to start from week 1, and to borrow from your buddy Schwartz's vocabulary, startup costs in Carolina. I think that Atlanta and New Orleans will do battle for that division. I think both of those guys keep their job. I would say Allen and Smith. I think McCarthy goes, because I don't think the Cowboys will do anything in the playoffs. Bowles is dead. I know you're not a Brandon Staley fan. I'm not a huge fan of his either. If he doesn't win a playoff game with Herbert, they got to get Herbert signed. They'll turn Herbert and that new deal over to some other coach. I would probably put Stefanski 3rd, because I actually think Deshaun Watson's going to have a good year. Year removed from all the stuff, self-inflicted pain, but I do think he'll be better. I think in Washington, they're going to bring in a new coach, and the most likely to not be back, that would be Josh McDaniels of the Vegas Raiders.
Bad head coach. You know,
he absolutely is a bad head coach who's been given a couple of shots at it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there are some guys, and you and I have both seen this in our years. Guys are great coordinators, offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, and they're just not head coaches.
Yeah.
But because they're so good at being assistants, teams will give them a chance or a second chance or a third chance. Norm Turner got 3 chances.
Norm Turner, right? Baby. That is the definition of Norm Turner.
Exactly right. You would just keep giving him. Forget the 2 times he failed as a head coach. Do you remember how great an offensive coordinator he was with the Cowboys? We need to make this guy our head coach. Just boggles my mind when it happens, and that's Josh McDaniels. This will be it, though. Josh is not going back for a third bite at the apple. He will have to stay as a coordinator the rest of his career. Yeah, I don't like the Raiders at all this year.
But by the way, I number 3 for me, you said Stefanski. I think he's a better coach than my number 3, and that's Staley, who I don't like as a coach even a little bit, but I think he's got a chance to stay because, one, the quarterback is tremendous. Like you're talking about Deshaun Watson comes back to what he was. We already know Justin Herbert's great, and they're going to be solid. And if they could just hold, what was the lead they blew against Jacksonville? I don't know, 20. It was 20 something
points.
Yeah, it's 20 something. I think Herbert.
It was 27.
Yeah, it might have been 27. I think Herbert might save his job, but he could also take it because if he says, you know what, I'm done with this guy, they're done with that guy. He's not winning that battle.
Oh yeah, he's losing that one. He the pressure's on him, and the difference between like he and Stefanski, the expectations are much less in Cleveland. They should be phenomenally high because the Browns never win anything, but then again, neither do the Chargers. But because of Herbert's had the career that he's had, the expectations are higher. That's why I think Staley is more likely to get his pink slip. All right, Jody McDonald, John McMullen, Mac here with you on Birds 365. We need a third Mac into the mix. My other Mac partner, that would be on the radio side. He is the host of the Eagles pregame show on their radio network, and you catch him weekends on WIP as well. Glenn Mac now joins us next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
In the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake them out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Oh, it's a triple Mac attack coming your way. Jody McDonald, John McMullen, and Glenn Mack now host of the Eagles pregame show, and of course host on the weekends on WIP. G-Mac, I know you were probably not listening to hour number one of the show today, but we had on John Stone is from Bleeding Green Nation. I asked him, what game is the must-see? Got to be down there for the Eagles this year. He said San Francisco. He said, secondly, maybe Buffalo. And he said, I'm trying hard to remember if during the Kelly era, the Bills ever came in. There's not a rivalry between these two teams. And I had to look it up. 1996, Buffalo came in to play the Eagles. Jim Kelly against Ty Detmer.
Wow. Ty Detmer, baby. Ty Detmer gutted Jim Kelly, Glenn Mack. Now, you don't remember that?
I do not.
Neither do I. I don't remember that game. I said, how could I forget? Mac now and I were working together at the time.
Yeah.
It's Bills Eagles. How the hell do I have no recollection of that game?
The only real significant Bills Eagles game moment that I remember was the Randall Cunningham run around the end zone, duck under Bruce Smith, throw the pass that ended up being a 91-yard touchdown to Freddie Barnett. That's my Eagle Bills kind of all-time moment.
Same here. That I remember.
Yeah.
Eagles Bills in 1996. Went right over my head. Shame on me. Shame on you, though. Thanks for sharing in my shame. I appreciate that greatly.
It's a long time ago, Jody.
We all had to look it up. That was, that was pretty big. That was the year Rodney Peete got hurt, and Ty Detmer had to play a lot, and the Eagles made the playoffs.
Yeah, it did really well.
Pretty impressive.
Did really well. They had such good defense back then.
Yeah.
They could win.
Yeah, they did. All right. Speaking of defense, I talk about this year's Eagles defense. Linebacker. Johnny Mack and I keep coming back to this. Peter King wrote a column a couple of weeks ago, ranked the team, said, I hate doing this, but then he went ahead and did it. Power rankings of all the teams in the National Football League. And the Eagles number one. And he said, a team I can't find a weakness on. I think a little hyperbole by Peter there, because linebacker to me is a weakness. Even if you love Nakobe Dean, which I do love them from the minute they drafted him in the third round. Nicholas Morrow, Christian Ellis has made a couple of plays in OTAs, picked off passes in 7-7. 11 on 11 going to be much different, more difficult come September. Is linebacker a weakness for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, Glenn?
I don't think it's particularly weakness, guys, because I think the way they de-emphasize linebackers makes it a less important position for the team, if that makes any sense. So it's not one where when you lose TJ Edwards, when you lose Kaiser White, you're in terrible trouble, because those guys, and I know, listen, Edwards made a lot of tackles. But when I think of the top 25 plays from last year, I don't know that TJ Edwards or Kaiser White are in any of them. I think it's a plug-and-play position for them, and I think those guys should be able to come in. We didn't see much of Nakobe Dean last year. We saw him a little bit in a couple of games. He looked good in those limited opportunities. By all accounts, he's really smart. He's going to wear the green dot, which means he's going to be the guy on the field all the time calling the plays. You hope because of his size he can hold up. But I think he should be fine based on how good he was in college. And I think Nicholas Morrow is going to be okay. Listen, he led the Bears in tackles last year, which again may not be the greatest accomplishment. I think everybody was running through their front line, so guys were coming right at him. But I think they'll be fine. And I think given how they are so strong at the line, in the secondary, it's not going to be a problem.
To play a little devil's advocate with that, because I think you're right, Glenn. I think that's the way the Eagles look at it, is it's just sort of a plug and play position. And you're right, there weren't a ton of splash plays from TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, but I'll tell you what, plugging in TJ Edwards was a hell of a lot better than plugging in Eric Wilson a couple of years ago. The Eagles have been through this. They've gone down that route with poor linebackers. Nate Gary, fans like to bring up, the Paul Warlows of the world, the Corey Nelsons that never even, the LJ Forts that never even panned out. They tried to plug them in, but they couldn't play. TJ could play. Play.
Hey, I don't want to take anything away from TJ Edwards. I think Kaiser White was just a guy, but I think TJ Edwards was pretty good. Can Morrow be that guy? I don't know. I mean, the game I remember was the Bears game against the Eagles last year. He had the most tackles on the field. I think he had 11 or 12 tackles that day. I think he's going to be a guy who will tackle guys who are near him and not make a lot of, interceptions, forced fumbles, other plays than that. And I think on this defense, he played every single play for the Bears last year and was perfectly cromulent, perfectly decent. I think he can be that.
Hopefully he can be that, and or how he goes out and gets an upgrade, because we saw him do that a couple times last year during the summer, picking up a cornerback who turned into an all-pro and a safety who had a damn good season for him, and both of those were after camp additions, or at least after summer workout conditions. Let me ask you about the guy who's going to be calling those signals for the Philadelphia Eagles, Sean Desai. Change of defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, right, wrong, or indifferent. John and I are more fans, defenders than detractors. I think you're a guy who's gone back and forth on that. I like what I've heard from Sean Desai. The interviews that he's done, his track record is his track record. I think he's got all the verbal answers. We also speculate that it's going to be a very similar defense to the one that they had last year with Jonathan Gannon. How different is it going to be? Is it going to be we're not even going to be able to tell the difference between Desai's defense and Gannon's defense? Will he come in here and tinker? How do you think the Eagle defense is going to look under their new defensive coordinator?
Frustratingly similar. And I realize that when I say that, they did lead the league in sacks and got close to the record, and they were very good in, for part of the season in takeaways, and it was a very effective defense. I think it's going to be the same scheme. I think that's the scheme that Nick Sirianni wants to run, and so that's the scheme that they're going to run. I imagine, maybe just on a hunch and a hope, that Desai is going to be a little bit more aggressive, but I think that barring big changes in personnel, it's going to be the same defense, the same scheme that it was last year. And again, it was really effective. Yeah, I was not the biggest fan of Jonathan Gannon. I certainly wasn't one of the people who said he should be fired after 11 weeks when they were 10-1.
Evidently, we said it in a press conference. I don't remember it, but we were calling for him to be fired.
Yeah, he said it. Yeah, listen, part of the reason that it's so easy to dislike Jonathan Gannon is because of some of the things he said after he left and his personality. And I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to be 5-12 this year, and that's perfectly great with me.
5, you're giving them a lot.
Five might be optimistic there, G-Mac.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. They'll be contending for the first pick of the draft. So I don't think that's going to be, if you look at the top differences in the Eagles last year, it's not going to include the defensive scheme.
All right, I'm going to call myself out, Glenn, because I should have.
Sweet.
I should have asked Nick Sirianni in the very brief time we had this spring to see this team. What the hell is Matt Patricia doing here? And I forgot to ask.
Yeah.
What the hell is Matt Patricia doing here? What? It's so bizarre to me for two reasons, Glenn. One, the Slay reason. That's the obvious one.
Yeah.
The less obvious one. You got a first-year defensive coordinator coming in with all these expectations. You just mentioned the 70 sacks, number 2 overall, number 1 in passing defense, and that wasn't good enough because they didn't like the defensive coordinator. So he's got those expectations. And now all of a sudden you got, Mr. Defense sitting on his shoulder with the Belichick tint or whatever that's worth, but people know him. People understand his reputation. Why is he here? And they created a spot. This spot didn't exist on this coaching staff. Senior defensive assistant. Now they also have Marcus Brady as the senior offensive assistant. Did they replace Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen with 2 people on each side of the football?
I don't think so. Can we include chewing the pencil as one of the things that's particularly annoying about the guy?
Yeah.
Right. Can we get that one in there? Putting the pencil behind the ear.
Yeah.
I hope not, and I don't think so, because I think just from the brief track record we have from Nick Sirianni, he likes and trusts young coaches. I'm guessing, and again, John, because this stuff wasn't asked, I don't really know, but I'm guessing it's more of an advisor to the coach kind of role. I know Nick Fangio was only in here for a short time last year, but maybe it's a longer term version of that. Just kind of your, listen, the mob has like the regular advisors, and then they have the consigliere, who's kind of separate and just reports to the Don. Maybe he's like in that consigliere role.
Could be, and I will make a prediction here. It will affect John more than you and I because he's down there every day, Glenn. Matt Patricia, not going to be made available very often, if at all this year.
No,
they will keep him well under wraps. He's not. You're going to have to get your answer from Sirianni and then decide whether you want to buy it or not. But you're not going to be able to get it straight from the horse's mouth. You are right. He's a consigliere that will be kept in the background this season. Mark my words.
And may I say that those rare times, if and when he is made available, John, as you know, having worked for Belichick, he's going to give you nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe a sneer.
Well, except he was
maybe a pencil
to compare Darius Slay to some of the best cornerbacks in the NFL that got him in trouble the last time he was there. But then he was the head coach. Now he's just a consigliere. So, he'll probably refer back to his Belichick days. All right, G-Mac, I got a important question for you. Did you get your NFC Championship ring?
No.
We know Howard got a Super Bowl ring.
Howard's
he got a championship ring, and as the host of the Eagles pregame show, you should have one of those puppies too.
You should have a Super Bowl ring, by the way. Why didn't they give you a Super Bowl ring?
I do not, nor would I ask for one. I think the most refreshing approach to this thing is by Mike Quick, because Mike Quick, of course, is a member of the broadcast team, also was given one. And when I do public appearances with Mike, I say, Mike, I never see you wear your ring. And Mike says, I didn't earn a ring when I played. I don't deserve to wear a ring. The only people who deserve to wear the ring are the guys who played and the guys who coached. And so if Mike Quick doesn't think he's worthy of a ring, hey, this is my wedding ring. I wear it proudly. That's all I got.
Good for you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Mike. I'm glad he thinks that way. But they gave
maybe
everything.
if you're the trainer, if you're somebody else who's
well, the coaches, the trainers. Ricky's got one. Our buddy Ricky Ricardo, he's got one. Howard's got one. Yeah, Jeffrey Lurie was feeling. He was happy.
Yeah, so I get to see Merrill a lot and so on. And Merrill doesn't wear his on a day-to-day basis. But if Merrill is going to something where he's, kind of showing off a charity event, Merrill will bring it and let people see it and so on. And that's kind of sharing it, which I think is a little bit different.
Yeah. He's probably got the top down too. He's driving up with the top down with the ring outs.
Merrill's living large.
Proud of that. Yeah.
Merrill deserves to live large.
Yeah. He should be. He might tip over with that ring, though. That's a big ring.
He does lifts.
G-Mac, let me run this one by you. Something we've been kicking around for a couple weeks here on the show. And it got raised to another level by the head coach, as a matter of fact. Thought during this offseason, a more highly quality third receiver would be something the Eagles would be looking at. If Olamide Zaccheaus is it, he's a different type of receiver. He's more of a slot guy. Quez is your third guy, plays in the slot, but also can move outside. I don't know that they're going to do that with Olamide. Didn't draft anybody at the wide receiver position, a couple undrafted free agents. I thought there'd be more of a move to upgrade that position during the offseason, which makes me sound like a Quez Watkins hater, which I'm not really, but I'm not a huge Quez Watkins fan either. Is Quez just going to shut everybody up like Sirianni suggested the last time he talked to the media? Oh, Quez, he's hearing people say he stinks. You watch. Quez Watkins is going to be. I'm having a tough time believing it. Do you think Quez is the man? Do you think they'll look for another individual? Do you think Olamide Zaccheaus is the guy to step up and make Quez less of a factor? How do you think the next wide receiver, we'll just say next wide receiver down the depth chart after Smith and Brown play out this year?
Look, I'm still not over the Super Bowl with that guy. I'm still thinking about, was the Cowboys game where he didn't fight for those 50-50 balls, right? I'm still bugged by that thing.
The Commander loss at home where he got stripped after he made the big catch downfield.
Yes. And I think Nick Sirianni and then Jalen Hurts both talking him up are done with motive to both give him confidence and also kind of try to silence the critics. I am not a big Quez fan. I would best was 2 years ago. I think he had a pretty good year. I think he had 43 catches and he had, averaged 15 yards a catch, had some TDs. I don't think he's coming back to those numbers at all, in part because they have two really good wide receivers to start. Although I couldn't spell his name. If you gave me 20 tries, I still think Zaccheaus is going to be pretty good. And I think he's going to get more action than Quez got last year. I feel sorry for John McMullen, who actually has to type stories and is going to go to spell checker.
I already got it.
Yeah, you got that? You got the last name too?
Zaccheaus, Olamide Zaccheaus, St. Joe's Prep, the whole thing. I always say,
hold on, little spelling bee here. Go for it.
Anytime, it's not that bad. Olamide Zaccheaus. Olamide Zaccheaus.
Well done.
Yeah. There you go. Halapuli Bati Bata. Anytime I get to say Halapuli Bati Bata, I get very excited. So I just throw that in there.
Yeah.
Now, Glenn, Jody tells me you're on vacation. So first, thanks for joining us while you're on vacation. So I don't know if you saw, but there was a little video going around. John Gruden sort of coaching up some players, trying to revamp his own reputation. One of those players was Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is out there working out with John Gruden.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I think one of Carson's problems when he was here is he sort of leapt to his own devices. He didn't do that kind of stuff in the offseason that certain players do. I think it's a positive. He's out there working with other players. I'm curious because you've been around this town for so long and around the NFL. He was so good in 2017. Sure. And man, I've never seen anything like it. I try to say somebody at that apex, and it wasn't, we bring up RG3 who had the great rookie year. That was directly related to injuries. Carson had a lot of injuries. He was never the same after the torn ACL, but he played really well. It's just not at the same level as he did in 2017. And then it was just off a cliff. And the pandemic year.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. He was never the same from the moment they drafted Jalen Hurts. That was the turning point.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. With him, it's there certainly was some physical in it, but a lot of it was mental. And yeah, I saw all that, and I saw the tweet that said Carson Wentz, doing workout, waiting for the perfect
that's Adam Schefter. There's a price to pay
to
be an information broker, Glenn.
Yeah,
there's a price
waiting
to pay.
For the right opportunity. Is anybody going to hire him? I don't think Carson Wentz is going to have 8 or 10 offers, but Listen, there is that much talent that somebody is going to think, hey, I can get him back on track. the biggest issue with Wentz to me over the last couple of years, in addition to alienating his teammates and almost getting into a fight before the Super Bowl and all that baggage that we know about, was just his judgment got so bad. I will never forget him when he played for the Colts in the end zone, switching the ball from his right hand to his left hand to throw an interception, a pick six. And just a whole run of those mistakes that showed to me kind of a desperation, right? The baseball equivalent of the guy who wants to get up and hit a 6-run home run. I do not think it is impossible that Wentz can have, I was going to say, a second act, a third act, a fourth act, whatever act this could be, and come back and be a decent quarterback in the NFL. I think Gruden's probably the right guy. If I were advising Carson Wentz, Gruden would be a guy I think I'd want to try to unlock it, because Gruden can be tough, right? We've seen Gruden in those quarterback camps where he'll just strip a guy down. Hello, Chris Sims. If I were betting, I'd bet against it, but I don't think it's impossible. I don't know where. I don't know what franchise right now has the right.
It would have to be an injury, right? Desperation back in the, where Carson took over here. It was,
and hey, we've seen those situations, right?
Yeah. Sam Bradford traded Minnesota because Teddy Bridgewater got hurt.
Kurt Warner won a Super Bowl in that situation. I mean, we've seen it throughout history. It is not impossible that week 3, Carson Wentz ends up in some distant borough playing for somebody. And, I'm not malicious enough. I think I would wish him well.
All right, G-Mac, I enjoy when I'm on Sundays with you on WIP, one of the features that you've been doing for a long time, which is what we're watching. I almost feel guilty when I don't have something new to bring to the when I'm on Sundays.
Yeah.
But we've got something coming up in July. I don't know if you've seen previews for this or whatever, but in July at some point, I know you and I are going to talk about it. Netflix has a docuseries coming up called QB's 2022, where they look back at the season that 3 quarterbacks in the NFL had last year.
An Eagles quarterback, too.
Right. One being Patrick Mahomes, one being Kirk Cousins, and one being Marcus Mariota. So they're kind of spreading it out. The high of the high but limited, the what the hell happened here? So I actually like the 3 guys that they picked.
Yeah.
If you're an Eagles fan, and I know this is kind of hypothetical, and you either have to watch them all or you have to watch none, would you rather see Patrick Mahomes and how the season finished for him? The Kirk Cousins comes into Philadelphia and proves he can't win at night, and Justin Jefferson does nothing against that Eagle defense. And the whole Marcus Mariota elsewhere, that's how he becomes an Eagle, by being pushed out of Atlanta. If you got to make a call, yay or nay, and you got to watch it all, are you in or you out?
Oh, got to watch it all. And yes, it will hurt when I see the red and yellow confetti coming down at the end of the Super Bowl instead of the blue and the white confetti, and Andy Reid winning it. And nothing against Andy Reid, but no thanks. And all of that. And then what the hell happened to the defense in the second half? And I can curse Jonathan Gannon one more time.
Oh,
yeah, that one will hurt. The Cousins one will be get me my popcorn, because this will be a fun night. And the Mariota one, I really do want to watch, because that thing turned bad. And my sense is it was as much play, or more than it was his play, it was his team dynamics and what was going on. And I want to know, like, how did that all go sour? Because how does that how does that bait for the Eagles moving forward, right? I mean, what is this guy about? So I'm all in for that. Also in for the Wilt docuseries in July. Also, there's gonna be a lot of good sports documentaries this summer.
Yeah, the trailer looked great for the quarterback one.
Yeah,
maybe we'll get to see some Olamide Zaccheaus down in Atlanta too.
That's right.
A little bonus, bonus coverage.
Some TDs.
That'll get Jody excited. At Real Glenn Mack now on Twitter. Make sure you follow Glenn there. Obviously host on WIP with Jody Mack. Mike Sealski on the weekends does a tremendous job there. The podcast, What's Brewing PA? Any good IPAs we need? Any good new IPAs coming out from you guys, Glenn?
Well, the one I would tell you, and it's a golden ale, but I'm definitely trying to build up the market as much as I can because it's for a great cause. We released and Jody was at the party, which I very much appreciate last week, the Fransky and LA Bedlam at the Bank Golden Ale to benefit the Philadelphia Youth Sports Consortium. We had a great charity event last week. We raised $25,000, including a nice guy, Pat McLaughlin, who paid some bucks to drink beers and eat burgers with Jody and I, which we'll set up soon.
Nice.
Very much looking forward to that. All right, last thing for me, Mac, and it may have an effect on the Eagles. It may have no effect on the Eagles whatsoever. The NFL owners have been told, be prepared. We may actually have a vote this week to end the reign of terror for some. Dan Snyder as the owner of the Commanders. I don't know about you, but I was always okay with Snyder owning the Commanders because I think he was bad at it. Yes. And I think although, the Eagles lost last year to Washington at home, the only game that Jalen Hurts lost all year long as a starting quarterback. So I got to at least eat that one. But the Eagles have been the better of the two in that series between the two. Should Dan Snyder be missed by Eagles fans?
Yes. Yeah, his ineptitude was worth, well, if not 2 wins a year, pretty much. I don't know what the record is over the last 10 years, but I mean, they've been through, I think, 7 coaches and 15 quarterbacks and 29 offensive coordinators and empty stadiums, and it was great for the Eagles. So in that sense, I will miss him. I also really dislike it because I hate the whole notion that the guy who owns the Sixers, who also owns the Devils, is now going to own Washington. It's like, what the hell? You're either one of us
DC market, Philly market, New York market, essentially. That's weird.
I don't like that at all. I listen, I understand Jeff Lurie is from Boston, and I understand it is not unusual for your sports owner to be from somewhere else. But if you're here, be committed, be one of us or don't. And I think Harris is, again, just in it to raise the money of these assets. Don't like it.
Yeah, I wish I had Josh Harris's money. Damn, he must have a lot. He could pull
we all do.
Give him a call. He can follow him around.
And Josh Harris reminds me of Red McCombs. You guys remember Red McCombs? He used to buy sports teams.
Yeah.
Birds and Vikings, right?
Yeah. Bunch of teams. Nugget. He owned basketball. He would flip sports teams, make a lot of money.
But these are our rivals, right? I mean, I think if he owned, it would bother me less. It would bother me, but it would bother me less if he owned the St. Louis Blues or the LA Chargers or whatever. But this is in the damn division, these teams.
Yeah, but see, when he has to go there, he's actually got to get in a plane. Now all he has to do is helicopter down from New York.
So we're going to see him in the owner's box at Washington games?
Maybe with the new stadium. I don't think they have an owner's box at FedEx.
Okay.
Oh, they have an owner's box. It's way up in the corner, right near the press when you're down there doing the Commanders games. As a matter of fact.
That's my favorite thing is when Merrill is on the games.
He loves bitching about that.
I love that.
Oh, he loves that. Yeah. G-Mac, we love whenever you come on with us. Thank you much for doing so. I will be catching up with you on the air on WIP soon enough, my brother. Thanks for jumping in today.
Always a pleasure, guys. Anytime. Be well.
That is Glenn Mack now, host of the Eagles pregame show on 94 WIP, the Eagles radio network. And
by the way, remember FedEx Field? Remember Jalen collapsing, the railing collapsing right in front of Jalen Hurts?
Oh, shoot. And that could have gone real bad. That was this close to going real bad.
He no-sold it too. That was amazing. That shows you how calm and collected the guy was. Just picked the people up and kept going on his way.
I went down to FedEx Field as a fan. Buddy of mine invited me to go down. He had tickets. Buddy of mine from Delaware. Owns a bar and part of his buying beer from the beer company, whatever. Gave him 2 tickets to a Redskin game because he was they were the Redskins at that time, Redskin fan. And he said, come on, drive down and we'll go to the game. And because they were freebies, they were not the greatest seats in the world. The incline in that stadium walking up the stairs on the top level, I seriously had to like sit down and take a rest. It was serious work to get up as high as we were sitting. And I was dead tired. I said, guess what? You're going to get the beers. I'm not going anywhere. These stairs are ridiculous. I'm not going back down and coming back up with beer in my hand.
Oh, man, that place is
and this is 15 years ago. This wasn't last year that the old man McDonald couldn't get up and down the stairs. No, this was McDonald in his 40s couldn't get up and down the stairs.
That place is such a dump for an NFL. They had a sewage pipe leaking on fans. It is awful. It is awful.
They do need a new stadium, and let's see if Paris can get it done. But that is just
he'll get it done. They'll be giving him. That's one of the reasons he bought that team, because everybody's going to line up because they're so happy Snyder's gone. He's going to get great deals, whether it's in Northern Virginia, or they put it in DC. He's going to get a great deal, and he's going to get a new stadium. He's going to make a lot of money. I'm not a big Josh Harris fan as an owner, but I'm a big Josh Harris fan as a businessman.
And I know where people are coming from, because, I grew up in New York. My father worked for the New York Mets, so I went to Chase Stadium hundreds, borderline thousands of times in my youth. So that was the stadium that I grew up in. And toward the tail end of it, it had become a dump. It was, as the stadium in Washington is now a dump. But I always used to defend it and say, yeah, but it's my dump, because I watched the Mets win 2 World Series there. The Commanders, is that stadium their dump?
They hate it. The fans hate it. The Eagles fans take over that place every year.
Every year.
Part of the reason why Commanders aren't very good now, but they haven't been terrible. They've been competitive. No, they hate it. They hate it. They hate the stadium. They hate the owner, so that's part of it.
But they didn't win a championship in that building. That was still RFK.
Still RFK.
They won the Super Bowl.
Which was also a dump, by the way. RFK.
I was with RFK with my buddy, same guy. He's a Redskin fan, so we go down. I enjoyed that, and that was when we went to the FedEx. It was new, and you could already see it had issues. We went to RFK. That was old. Yeah, it was, but that was cool. That was the feeling of a stadium. That was an NFL.
Well, yeah. There's that part of it. If you go back to JFK Stadium here, that was a dump too. But you had a feel of a real stadium.
Yeah, it did.
RFK did down there, but it was a dump at the end. RFK.
You could feel the stadium shake underneath you, under your feet. We had good seats in that one.
That was probably part of the problem. They were afraid it would collapse.
Exactly. But that when you make it out and you're out and uncovered, you're wow, that was cool. That was fun. But if the stadium comes falling down on your head, like it did on Jalen Hurts over at the new stadium, that's a little worrisome. He's McMullen on McDonald coming back. We need to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Couple of minutes left here on Birds 365. Thanks for streaming in with us each and every single day. Mac and Mac will be back mañana. Same bad time, same bad channel. While you're here, you might as well hit the like button. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe so we can get a little algorithm love. Johnny Mac, tomorrow we're going to have, Bob Groats. We got the Prince of Darkness tomorrow.
There we go, man. It's always fun to have Bob Groats.
You know what? I love Mac now. We had two good guys. Stoneless is great. Had two great Eagle guys, Philadelphia guys. I like some of our national guys. I get a bigger kick out of Groats than anybody. I just love Groats and his laissez-faire attitude. He's the best. So we got Groats coming tomorrow. We got somebody else in here. All right. Anybody going to make any noise for us? Are you going to make any news? We got 22 hours to wait before you and I do it again. Come on, Johnny Mac. Tell me something's going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles.
This time of year, you don't want anything to happen, if you know what I mean. So,
exactly.
No news is good news this time of year.
No news is good news. We'll find out if there's any news around the camps. All right, brother. Always a pleasure. Good show today. I say we do this again tomorrow. You in?
Let's do it.
We will be back in 22 hours. That's 2 and 2 here on Birds 365.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.